So I've been thinking about my self-worth journey and just the second house in general. I know that we're in Venus retrograde right now, so I have been reflecting a lot on my past relationship and just how much transformation there has been within the past year. It's kind of mind-boggling, but I wanted to talk about my second house and specifically my Pluto in the second house in the sign of Libra. So just to break down the second house, Pluto, in the sign of Libra. So the second house covers an area of your life that encompasses your finances, your resources, what it is that you value, your self-value. It's the skills that can help bring you value. So when you think of the sign Libra, Libra is the sign of the scales. And so automatically you think balance, and Libras need balance when it comes to relationships, whether they're romantic or platonic. They need fairness, they need peace, they need balance and beauty and aesthetics. They have a real appreciation for beauty and the arts and the finer things in life. The shadow side of that, though, is that Libras can be very superficial, only seeing things on the surface and not going deeper. They can people please and, say yes and be easygoing and not really thinking about themselves, giving too much and not receiving as much. And when you think of Pluto, in astrology, it's technically a planet, even though it's not in astronomy, but it is arguably the most powerful planet in astrology. And Pluto brings out deep wounds, deep psychological wounds. It can bring out power struggles. It can bring out obsessive qualities. It could bring out the darker sides of life. But on the other side of the coin, Pluto can bring transformation, it can bring empowerment, it can bring true authenticity, it can bring healing of inner wounds, really facing your inner wounds, coming in contact with them, facing them, healing from them. So that's all that Pluto. But I wanted to give you my experience and what Pluto and Libra in the second house, what my experience has been throughout my life. So starting with beauty and Libra being the sign of aesthetics and beauty and the arts. When I was a teenager, I was extremely self-conscious, and Pluto can bring the extremes, but I really, it might be hard to believe, but I was extremely self-conscious and extremely awkward. And I just had this perception of beauty and how beauty should look. And there were so many things about myself that I didn't like. I didn't like my forehead. I thought I had a big I do have a big forehead, but I really did not like my forehead. I didn't like the moles on my face. I didn't like my body. It was like the skinny girl, maybe a little bit athletic, but beauty around me was, curvy girls and curvy women. And I didn't have any curves or anything. I was like really flat chested, and I was so self-conscious, really, really, really self-conscious. And I valued beauty, but I didn't feel beautiful, and that equaled to me not valuing myself. And I just remember, when I was a teenager, and if there was someone that I liked and he showed some kind of attraction towards me, that made me feel like, oh, he thinks I'm beautiful. And, it was kind of like feeding into that part of me that felt really self-conscious, that didn't feel beautiful. But I felt like, okay, if someone sees me in this way, maybe I am beautiful. And, it made me feel a little bit more self-confident. I'd mess around with these guys, and afterward it would do the opposite. I wouldn't feel self-confident. I would feel more self-conscious, and I'd feel like I had less self-value. I also remember people making fun of me, and people, making comments about parts of my body, like making comments about the moles on my face or making comments about how my face looked. And it just made me feel really, really self-conscious, and I wasn't, seeing the truth of it. Like, who the hell cares what they think? But I just, I didn't have that mindset. I was so self-conscious, and my teenage years was a really awkward time for me. I also remember when I was in my last relationship, there are certain things that I remember that really struck a chord with me. My husband had mentioned that he saw like something in the back of my knee. He said that he saw a vein on the back of my knee, and I looked and it was like this little blue vein, and I looked at it, and part of me felt bad about it, but part of me was like, why is he telling me this? This is not a big deal, and what does he want me to do with it? Does he want me to get it surgically removed? I mean, what the hell? I was kind of like, I questioned it. I never said anything, but it was always in my head, like, why would he even mention that? I remember, going on vacation, and we're in Hawaii, and I think there was a day where I just, we're going to the beach. I didn't want to wear makeup, and I kind of said out loud, oh, I don't think I'm going to wear any makeup. And then he had made a comment like, no, maybe you should. He didn't say it in a bad way per se, but first of all, I didn't ask him for his opinion. I was kind of talking to myself, but it was just, I felt bad that he felt like I needed to wear makeup, and I listened to him and I put on makeup, but it hurt. I remember it hurting. So those were kind of my insecurities as far as beauty. But when it came to creativity, I'd also remember, when I'd go on vacation with my then husband, I loved taking pictures, and I liked taking pictures with him. And, I was kind of obsessed with the aesthetics and how a photo was going to look like. And I remember kind of being obsessed with how a picture was going to look. And if it didn't come out, or, pictures didn't come out right, I would be all upset, and it would kind of mess up my mood for the night. And instead of not worrying about that and living more in the moment and being like, oh, if I got a good picture out of it, great. If I didn't, whatever. I was just so wrapped up in what it is that I wanted and how I wanted it to look, and kind of the aesthetics. And Libras, again, they need balance when it comes to aesthetics, but I was just more concerned about the picture than living my life on the vacation. I mean, what is that? And I think a lot of the world is like that today. Everyone's so obsessed with posting on social media to show what the hell they're doing, when really they're only showing what they want to show off, and they're not really living in the moment. Hate me if you want for saying that, but it's the truth. It was the things that I was realizing that were crippling me and taking away from my happiness. Now, when you think of Pluto and Libra in the second house under relationships, because Libra does rule relationships, it's funny because, my then husband, I started going out with him when I was 19 years old, and I don't think he realized the power that he had over me. And he definitely wasn't like, oh, you have to do this and you have to do that. It wasn't that kind of power struggles that I had with him, but it was very psychological. One, I was 19 years old. I didn't know who I was. I was in love with him. I was blinded by, falling in love and not seeing any of the little details that you would if you weren't in love with someone. When you're in love with someone, you could, love them. They'd probably have the worst habit, fart all over the place, and you'd be fine with it because you got stars in your eyes for them. But I remember when we first started going out, and he would tell me things about the type of girls that he doesn't like. And it was, he didn't like party girls. And I was kind of coming out of that party girl phase. And what he told me, he's like, I don't like girls that smoke. I don't like girls that go to parties and blah, blah, blah. And he wasn't telling me, I don't want you to go to parties. I don't want you to smoke. No, he wasn't saying that at all. But he was telling me what he didn't like. So it was very psychological. And I listened to him. I didn't smoke. I did like to smoke weed sometimes, but back then, but I didn't smoke for him. I wasn't a party girl as much. I wasn't hanging out with the same people. And I do know that that was a good thing. It needed to happen because I was hanging out with the wrong crowd. He did bring me stability, but a little bit at the cost of who I am and my authenticity. And it's not like, oh yeah, partying, when you think of partying, yeah. But for me, partying was a way for me to connect with people. And I've always been a people person, and I've always loved having a good time. And honestly, partying is a celebration of life. We do the same things day to day. You go to work, you come home, you cook, you do whatever, your responsibilities, you take care of your kids, you do all of that. So partying is a way to let off some steam, have some fun in life, and, connect with people. And that was something that I loved. And not that he controlled me from going to parties or anything like that, but I did take a lot of that lifestyle away from me, especially like those first few years that we're together. I lived more of his life than living the kind of life that I would like to live if, I was single. And then in my friendships had a control over me too. I didn't have the self-value to kind of stand in my own shoes and, ask for what I wanted or do what I wanted. I always went with the flow. I went with other people. I people pleased. I always felt like a little bit different. So I always felt like I was the one that had to go on people's levels because I was different, and they wouldn't understand my level. So I just always went with other people. And thinking of Pluto and the power, people had power over me. My relationships, all of my relationships, romantic and platonic, they had power over me. Me having a lack of self-value and letting people have that power over me, it really did hurt my authenticity. It really did wound it. I always gave more, and I didn't get what I gave back in return. And I just felt like, I was doing more to get to know people, but they weren't really doing anything to really get to know me. It was always very one-sided. And I'm not the type of person that's going to tell people, oh, what about me? This is what I do. I'm not like that. If you're not curious, I'm not going to open up. I mean, except here on YouTube and Instagram, but that's just me now. But when it comes to people, if someone's not going to make the effort, I'm not going to try to make the effort for them to get to know me. No, they're going to have to get to know me. So that's really what I experienced for a lot of my life. And it's crazy because, now I'm going through a divorce and I've been detoxing from my relationship. And I really do feel like I'm not the same person. I'm the same person, but there's a lot of my old tendencies and a lot of my old habits and the things that I used to do it's gone. Like now I'm comparing everything, and it has to do with my Mercury and Virgo. Because Virgo is a sign of the analytical thinker, and so I can't help but just compare everything. And then Libra, of course, wants to see both sides of everything. So it's like analytical and wanting to see both sides, and so I could get a little bit. But it's crazy because I compare everything with my life and feeling like I'm unchained. I felt so chained and I felt so hidden. I felt like I just couldn't be myself, and I'm embracing it now. I'm embracing who I am, and I'm finding myself. It does feel empowering. I feel like I'm tapping into the other side of the coin when it comes to Pluto. And really, really finding myself and empowering myself and, just understanding my worth and taking the time to be with people who want to take the time with me. Libra is all about balance, and Libra will fight for balance one way or another, or, sooner or later, Libra will fight for balance. I just got to a point, I hit a wall. I've never felt more at peace. I really do feel at peace. I mean, yeah, my life could be chaotic every once in a while, but there's something so good about feeling like you can be yourself and not having to worry or feel insecure about it, and, not being chained by those superficial tendencies we have, and just kind of living life, living in the moment. And that's kind of been my mantra, living in the moment. Living life, because I'm just at a point in my life where I just feel like life is too short and I want to get the most that I can out of it. And I want experiences, I want people and things that will really make it more valuable. When you value yourself is when you can start valuing life, because you realize what it is that is conflicting with your value. You realize what it is that's hurting you. And you don't want that anymore. You push away what it is that is conflicting with what you value and who you are. And it's so freeing. And Pluto really is about stripping what it is that doesn't serve you anymore, stripping away what it is that's hurting you from your true growth. And I'm feeling that. I'm feeling stripped away. It's a good feeling. And I wanted to get on here and share that story because I want not to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I want people to understand that when you start healing those wounds that you have, those patterns, the things that, you know, are stopping you from really living your life, I feel like it's magical, you know, because I'm seeing the differences, not just in myself, but I'm seeing the differences outside, and I'm seeing the differences in my interactions with people. And you probably think I'm crazy, but I really do see the differences. And I think people understand energy. They can feel energy, and they can feel the energy of someone who's being authentic and real. It's a different wavelength. And people respond to you differently when you're more authentic and true. And it could trigger people, but you know, push those people away. If it triggers them, push them away because you don't need them. But it's been an interesting several months for me. So yeah, it's exciting, but just wanted to share that story. Does anybody have Pluto in Libra? Can anyone relate to what I have to say? Or, you know, does anyone have Pluto in the second house? I'd love to hear, you know, any stories or anything like that, but let me know in the comments. Peace and self-love.